Welcome to our channel. Before starting, please like and subscribe for more stories. The origins of the British monarchy can be traced back over 1,000 years to the early medieval period, during a time when what is now England was divided into multiple smaller kingdoms. These early kingdoms, known collectively as the Anglo-Saxon Heptarchy, included territories such as Wessex, Mercia, Northumbria, East Anglia, and Kent. Each was ruled by its own king, and there was no single ruler presiding over all of England. Over time, through conquest, alliances, and the need for unity in the face of external threats, these smaller kingdoms consolidated into one, setting the foundation for the monarchy that would shape British history. The Anglo-Saxon Heptarchy and the early kings. The term Heptarchy is used to describe the 7 primary Anglo-Saxon kingdoms, though the number and boundaries often shifted due to ongoing wars and alliances. Among these, the kingdoms of Wessex, Mercia, and Northumbria were the most powerful at various times. 1. Wessex. This kingdom emerged as the dominant force in Anglo-Saxon England by the 9th century, especially under the rule of King Alfred the Great. 2. Mercia. Known for its wealth and cultural achievements, Mercia was a powerful kingdom during the 8th century under leaders like Offa, who constructed Offa's Dyke, a large earthwork along the border with Wales. 3. Northumbria. Renowned for its cultural and religious contributions, including the Lindisfarne Gospels and the monastic community at Whitby, Northumbria played a central role in early English Christianity. These kingdoms were constantly at war, vying for dominance over one another. However, their independence was threatened by the arrival of the Vikings in the late 8th century. Viking raids, which began as coastal attacks, escalated into full-scale invasions and occupation of large parts of England, known as the Danelaw. The unification of England. The process of unifying England into a single kingdom began in earnest during the 9th and 10th centuries. Alfred the Great, who ruled Wessex from 871 to 899, played a crucial role in this transformation. As one of England's most celebrated monarchs, Alfred is remembered for his military victories, administrative reforms, and cultural contributions. 1. Military leadership. Alfred successfully defended Wessex against the Vikings, culminating in the Battle of Edington in 878. Following this victory, he negotiated the Treaty of Wedmore, which divided England into Anglo-Saxon and Viking-controlled regions. 2. Administrative reforms. Alfred reorganized the military, built fortified towns called Buzz, and established a navy to protect against future Viking raids. 3. Cultural contributions. Alfred promoted education and literacy, commissioning translations of Latin texts into Old English and encouraging the creation of the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle, a vital historical record. Alfred's descendants continued his work, gradually reclaiming Viking-held territories and consolidating power. His grandson, Athelstan, achieved what Alfred could not, the unification of England. Athelstan, who reigned from 924 to 939, is widely regarded as the first king of the English. His victory at the Battle of Brunanburh in 937 secured his position as the ruler of a united England. The role of Christianity. The spread of Christianity was a significant factor in the development of the monarchy. Missionaries like St. Augustine of Canterbury, sent by Pope Gregory the Great in 597, converted Anglo-Saxon kings to Christianity. This religious transformation helped centralize authority, as kings were now seen as divinely appointed rulers. 1. Church and state alliance. The monarchy's alliance with the church strengthened its legitimacy and influence. Kings built churches and monasteries, which became centers of learning and governance. 2. Codification of laws. Christian principles influenced the legal codes established by early kings like Alfred the Great. These laws emphasized justice, morality, and social order. External threats and the consolidation of power. The British monarchy's early development was shaped by its response to external threats, particularly from the Vikings and, later, the Normans. 1. Viking raids and settlements. The arrival of the Vikings in the late 8th century posed a significant challenge to the Anglo-Saxon kingdoms. The Danelaw, a region of England under Viking control, created a need for unity among the Anglo-Saxons. 2. Norman influence. In 1016, the Danish king Knut conquered England, briefly establishing a North Sea empire that included Denmark and Norway. However, the Anglo-Saxon monarchy was restored in 1042 with the accession of Edward the Confessor, whose death in 1066 led to the Norman conquest. Legacy of the early monarchy. The early Anglo-Saxon kings laid the foundation for the British monarchy, establishing traditions and institutions that would endure for centuries. 1. Hereditary rule. The concept of a hereditary monarchy, where power is passed down through family lines, became firmly established during this period. 2. Centralized authority. The unification of England under leaders like Athelstan created a centralized monarchy with the power to enforce laws and maintain order. 3. Cultural identity. The monarchy became a symbol of English identity, blending Anglo-Saxon, Viking, and Christian influences into a unique cultural heritage. The origins of the British monarchy reflect a journey from fragmented kingdoms to a unified state. Figures like Alfred the Great and Athelstan played pivotal roles in this transformation, overcoming internal rivalries and external threats to establish a centralized monarchy. The integration of Christianity, the development of legal and administrative systems, and the enduring legacy of the Anglo-Saxon kings set the stage for the monarchy's evolution in the centuries to come. The Norman conquest of 1066 was one of the most significant events in British history, fundamentally transforming the monarchy, society, and governance of England. It marked the end of the Anglo-Saxon era and ushered in a new period of Norman rule, characterized by a centralized monarchy, feudalism, and profound cultural and political changes. The conquest not only reshaped the structure of the monarchy, but also created lasting legacies that would influence the development of the English nation for centuries. The Norman conquest began with the death of Edward the Confessor in January 1066. Edward had no direct heir, leading to a succession crisis that attracted multiple claimants to the English throne. One Harold Godwin's son, a powerful Anglo-Saxon noble, was crowned king but faced challenges from William, Duke of Normandy, a distant relative of Edward who claimed that Edward had promised him the throne. Harald Hardrada, the King of Norway, who sought to revive Viking dominance in England. The pivotal moment came at the Battle of Hastings on October 14, 1066. William's Norman forces, equipped with cavalry, archers, and disciplined infantry, defeated Harold's army. Harold was killed in the battle, and William earned the title William the Conqueror. By Christmas 1066, William was crowned King of England at Westminster Abbey, marking the beginning of Norman rule. One of the most significant changes brought about by the Norman conquest was the introduction of feudalism, a hierarchical system of land ownership and governance. 1. Redistribution of land. William confiscated lands from Anglo-Saxon nobles and distributed them to his Norman supporters, creating a new aristocracy loyal to the king. This redistribution of land consolidated William's power and ensured that the nobility owed their status to him, strengthening the monarchy. 2. The feudal hierarchy. At the top was the king, who owned all the land and granted portions to his vassals, barons, in exchange for military service and loyalty. The barons, in turn, divided their land among knights, who provided military service. At the bottom were the peasants, who worked the land and paid taxes. 3. Centralized authority. The feudal system allowed William to maintain tight control over the kingdom, with every level of society tied to the monarchy through land and service. In 1085, William commissioned the creation of the Domesday Book, a detailed survey of England's landholdings and resources. It was a groundbreaking administrative tool and a testament to William's desire for centralized control. One purpose of the survey. The Domesday Book cataloged who owned what, how much land was being farmed, and the value of resources. This allowed the monarchy to efficiently collect taxes and ensure that nobles were fulfilling their feudal obligations. 2. Legacy. The Domesday Book remains one of the most important historical records of medieval England, providing invaluable insights into the social and economic structure of the time. The Norman conquest profoundly influenced the culture and language of England, blending Anglo-Saxon and Norman traditions into a unique hybrid. 1. Language. The Normans spoke Old French, which became the language of the court, law, and administration. Over time, it mixed with Old English to create Middle English, a precursor to modern English. Many modern English words, especially those related to law, government, and nobility, e.g., court, judge, crown, have Norman origins. 2. Architecture. The Normans introduced a distinctive architectural style, building stone castles, cathedrals, and churches. Iconic structures like the Tower of London and Durham Cathedral exemplify Norman craftsmanship and their emphasis on imposing, fortified designs. 3. Customs and governance. Norman customs influenced the structure of the royal court, creating a more formalized and hierarchical monarchy. The Normans also introduced new legal practices that laid the groundwork for England's legal traditions. The Norman kings faced numerous challenges in maintaining control over England, as tensions simmered between the Anglo-Saxon population and their Norman rulers. 1. Rebellions and resistance. William faced several uprisings during his reign, including rebellions in the north, which he suppressed with brutal efficiency. His campaign, known as the Harrying of the North, involved widespread destruction and loss of life, ensuring that resistance was crushed. 2. Relations with the Church. William maintained strong ties with the Catholic Church, which supported his claim to the throne. He reorganized the English Church, replacing Anglo-Saxon bishops with Normans and reforming its administration to align with continental practices. 3. Succession disputes. After William's death in 1087, his sons fought over the throne, leading to periods of instability. William II, Rufus, succeeded his father, but was later succeeded by his younger brother, Henry I, who worked to consolidate Norman rule and strengthen royal authority. The Norman conquest left an indelible mark on England, shaping its monarchy, governance, and identity. 1. Transformation of the monarchy. The monarchy became more centralized and authoritative under the Normans, setting a precedent for the future. The relationship between the king and his vassals became a defining feature of English governance. 2. Integration with Europe. The conquest tied England more closely to continental Europe, particularly Normandy and France. This connection influenced English politics, culture, and military campaigns for centuries. 3. Enduring impact. The blending of Anglo-Saxon and Norman traditions created a unique English identity. The Norman influence can still be seen in England's language, legal system, and architecture. The Norman conquest was a defining moment in the history of the British monarchy. It not only transformed the political and social structure of England, but also laid the foundation for a more centralized and enduring monarchy. Under the Normans, the monarchy became a symbol of power and stability, even as it adapted to the challenges of ruling a diverse and evolving kingdom. The changes introduced by William the Conqueror and his successors shaped the trajectory of England's monarchy and its place in the world. The Plantagenet dynasty, which ruled England from 1154 to 1485, was one of the most influential in British history. Spanning over 300 years, the dynasty oversaw significant developments in law, governance, and territorial expansion. However, this period was also marked by internal strife, dynastic conflicts, and challenges to royal authority. The Plantagenets left an enduring legacy that shaped the British monarchy and laid the groundwork for the modern state. The origins of the Plantagenet dynasty. The Plantagenet dynasty began with Henry II, who ascended the throne in 1154. Henry was the son of Geoffrey of Anjou and Matilda, daughter of Henry I. His claim to the throne ended a period of civil war known as the Monarchy, during which his mother, Matilda, had contested the crown against her cousin, King Stephen. Henry II's reign, 1154 to 1189. Henry II established a strong central government and implemented legal reforms that became the foundation of English common law. He introduced the concept of trial by jury and reorganized the judiciary to ensure consistent application of the law across the kingdom. His marriage to Eleanor of Aquitaine, one of the wealthiest and most powerful women in Europe, brought vast territories in France under English control, creating the Angevin Empire. Conflict between crown and church. One of the most defining episodes of Henry II's reign was his conflict with Thomas Becket, the Archbishop of Canterbury. Disputes over clergy rights. Henry sought to limit the power of the church in legal matters, arguing that clergy accused of crimes should be tried in royal courts rather than church courts. Becket opposed Henry's efforts, leading to a bitter feud between the monarchy and the church. Becket's murder. In 1170, four knights loyal to Henry murdered Becket in Canterbury Cathedral, shocking Christendom. While Henry denied ordering the murder, he faced significant backlash and was forced to perform public penance. Becket's martyrdom strengthened the church's position, but the conflict highlighted the growing tension between royal authority and religious power. The reigns of Richard I and John. Henry II was succeeded by his sons Richard I, the Lionheart, and John, whose reigns showcased the challenges of maintaining royal power. Richard I, 1189 to 1199. Known for his military prowess, Richard spent much of his reign on the Third Crusade, leaving England under the administration of his brother, John, and other officials. His absence and the financial strain of his campaigns weakened the monarchy's domestic control. John, 1199 to 1216. John's reign was marked by failures, including the loss of English territories in France and his clashes with the barons. In 1215, facing rebellion, John was forced to sign the Magna Carta, a document that limited royal power and guaranteed certain rights to the nobility. While John later reneged on the Magna Carta, it became a cornerstone of constitutional governance, influencing the development of parliamentary democracy. The evolution of Parliament. The Plantagenet era saw the gradual development of Parliament, transforming the way England was governed. Origins under Henry III. Henry III's long reign, 1216 to 1272, was characterized by baronial unrest and demands for greater representation and governance. In 1265, Simon de Montfort, a rebel leader, convened the first parliament that included commoners, setting a precedent for broader representation. Edward I and the Model Parliament. Edward I, 1272 to 1307, strengthened the role of Parliament by formalizing its structure in 1295, creating what is often called the Model Parliament. Edward used Parliament to raise taxes and pass laws, solidifying its role as a key institution in the governance of England. The Hundred Years' War. The Plantagenet dynasty became embroiled in the Hundred Years' War, 1337 to 1453, a prolonged conflict with France over territorial claims and the English crown's legitimacy. Edward III's claim to the French throne. Edward III, 1327 to 1377, claimed the French crown through his mother, sparking a series of wars that spanned generations. The war brought significant military victories, including the battles of Crécy, 1346, and Poitiers, 1356, where the English used the longbow to devastating effect. Impact on the monarchy. The war strained the English economy and led to political unrest. Despite initial successes, England eventually lost most of its territories in France by the end of the conflict. The Black Death and social unrest. The Black Death, 1347 to 1351, had a profound impact on the Plantagenet monarchy and English society. Population decline. The plague killed an estimated one-third of England's population, leading to labor shortages and economic upheaval. The decline in population weakened the feudal system, as surviving peasants demanded better wages and living conditions. Peasants' Revolt, 1381. During the reign of Richard II, widespread discontent over taxes and labor conditions culminated in the Peasants' Revolt. The revolt was suppressed, but it signaled the growing power of the lower classes and the decline of traditional feudal structures. The Wars of the Roses. The final chapter of the Plantagenet dynasty was marked by the Wars of the Roses, a series of dynastic conflicts between the rival houses of Lancaster and York. Factional struggles. The weak reign of Henry VI, 1422 to 1461, led to divisions within the Plantagenet family, as competing factions vied for control of the throne. The wars saw dramatic shifts in power, with the throne passing between the Lancastrians and Yorkists. The rise of the Tudors. The wars ended with the victory of Henry Tudor, Henry VII, at the Battle of Bosworth in 1485, marking the end of Plantagenet rule and the beginning of the Tudor dynasty. Legacy of the Plantagenets. The Plantagenet dynasty left a lasting legacy in the development of the British monarchy and state. Legal and constitutional reforms. The creation of common law, the Magna Carta, and the rise of Parliament transformed governance and limited the power of the monarchy. Cultural achievements. The Plantagenet era saw the flourishing of English culture, including advancements in architecture, literature, and the arts. Dynastic challenges. The conflicts and upheavals of the Plantagenet period shaped the monarchy's resilience and ability to adapt to change. Conclusion: a dynasty of transformation. The Plantagenet dynasty was a period of profound transformation for the British monarchy. From the legal reforms of Henry II to the constitutional developments of the Magna Carta and Parliament, the Plantagenets established many of the institutions that define British governance today. While their reign was marked by conflict and instability, their contributions to law, government, and culture created a legacy that continues to influence the modern monarchy. The Tudor dynasty ruled England from 1485 to 1603, a period marked by profound religious, political, and cultural transformations. This era began with Henry VII establishing stability after the Wars of the Roses and culminated with the reign of Elizabeth I, during which England emerged as a major European power. The Tudors are perhaps best known for their role in the English Reformation, which severed England's ties to the Catholic Church and established the monarch as the head of the Church of England. The dynasty also saw significant achievements in exploration, governance, and cultural flourishing, making the Tudor period one of the most iconic in British history. The founding of the Tudor dynasty. The Tudor dynasty began with Henry VII, who defeated Richard III at the Battle of Bosworth in 1485, ending the Wars of the Roses. Henry VII's reign was focused on restoring order and strengthening the monarchy after decades of civil war. Securing the throne. Henry VII consolidated his power by marrying Elizabeth of York, uniting the houses of Lancaster and York. This marriage symbolized the end of dynastic conflict and solidified the legitimacy of the Tudor claim to the throne. He established the Tudor rose as a symbol of unity, combining the red rose of Lancaster and the white rose of York. Financial reforms. Henry VII prioritized financial stability, carefully managing royal finances and avoiding costly wars. His efforts to increase royal income strengthened the monarchy's independence from the nobility. He used bonds and recognizances, financial penalties, to keep the nobility in check, ensuring loyalty and reducing the potential for rebellion. Foreign alliances. Henry VII sought to secure England's position in Europe through strategic marriages, including the marriage of his eldest son, Arthur, to Catherine of Aragon, a Spanish princess. The reign of Henry VIII and the English Reformation. The reign of Henry VIII, 1509 to 1547, was one of the most transformative in British history. Known for his 6 marriages and larger-than-life personality, Henry's reign fundamentally reshaped England's religious and political landscape. The break with Rome. Henry VIII's desire for a male heir led to his first major confrontation with the Catholic Church. When Pope Clement VII refused to annul his marriage to Catherine of Aragon, Henry declared himself the supreme head of the Church of England through the Act of Supremacy, 1534. This break with the Catholic Church initiated the English Reformation, severing ties with Rome and establishing the Church of England as a separate entity. Religious changes. Henry dissolved monasteries across England, seizing their wealth and land to bolster the crown's finances. This dissolution of the monasteries significantly altered the religious and economic fabric of England. While Henry remained conservative in his religious beliefs, his actions set the stage for Protestant reforms during the reigns of his successors. Marital turmoil. Henry VIII's 6 marriages were central to his legacy. His marriages resulted in 3 children, Mary, Elizabeth, and Edward, whose successive reigns brought dramatic shifts in England's religious and political direction. Centralizing power. Henry VIII strengthened the monarchy's authority, reducing the power of the nobility and centralizing governance through institutions like the Privy Council and the Reformed Parliament. Edward VI and the Protestant Reformation. Edward VI, Henry VIII's only legitimate son, became king in 1547 at the age of 9. His short reign was dominated by Protestant reforms and the influence of regents, particularly Edward Seymour, Duke of Somerset, and later John Dudley, Duke of Northumberland. Protestant policies. Under Edward's regents, England adopted more radical Protestant reforms, including the introduction of the Book of Common Prayer, 1549, which standardized worship in English and replaced the Latin Mass. The destruction of Catholic imagery and practices intensified during Edward's reign, alienating many traditionalists. Instability and death. Edward VI's reign was marked by social unrest, including the Prayer Book Rebellion in 1549, as rural communities resisted religious changes. Edward's death in 1553, at the age of 15, led to a succession crisis, as Protestant leaders attempted to place Lady Jane Grey on the throne. Her 9-day reign ended with the ascension of Mary I. Mary I and the return to Catholicism. Mary I, 1553 to 1558, Henry VIII's eldest daughter, sought to restore Catholicism in England. Known as Bloody Mary for her persecution of Protestants, her reign was one of religious turmoil. Catholic Restoration. Mary reversed many of her father's and brothers' reforms, re-establishing ties with the Catholic Church and the Pope. Hundreds of Protestants were executed for heresy during her reign, including prominent figures like Thomas Cranmer, the former Archbishop of Canterbury. Marriage to Philip II of Spain. Mary's marriage to Philip II of Spain was deeply unpopular, as many feared it would lead to Spanish domination of England. The marriage produced no heir, and Mary's health deteriorated, leading to her death in 1558. Elizabeth I and the Elizabethan Golden Age. Elizabeth I, 1558 to 1603, Mary's half-sister, inherited a fractured kingdom but restored stability and transformed England into a major European power. Her reign, often referred to as the Elizabethan Golden Age, was marked by cultural achievements, religious compromise, and the defeat of the Spanish Armada. The religious settlement. Elizabeth sought to unite her divided kingdom through the Elizabethan religious settlement, which established the Church of England as a moderate Protestant institution. The Act of Supremacy, 1559, reinstated Elizabeth as supreme governor of the Church, while the Act of Uniformity standardized worship to appease both Catholics and Protestants. Cultural flourishing. Elizabeth's reign saw a renaissance in English culture, with literary giants like William Shakespeare and Christopher Marlowe producing works that remain celebrated today. Exploration thrived under figures like Sir Francis Drake, who circumnavigated the globe, and Sir Walter Raleigh, who attempted to establish colonies in the Americas. Defeating the Spanish Armada. In 1588, Elizabeth's navy defeated the Spanish Armada, securing England's independence from Spanish influence and solidifying its naval dominance. The Virgin Queen. Elizabeth never married, earning her the title, the Virgin Queen. Her refusal to produce an heir created uncertainty about the succession, but reinforced her image as a monarch solely devoted to her country. The Stuart dynasty, which ruled England, Scotland, and Ireland from 1603 to 1714, with a brief interruption during the interregnum, marked a period of dramatic change and conflict. This era witnessed the unification of the English and Scottish crowns, significant religious and political tensions, and one of the most pivotal events in British history, the English Civil War. The Stuarts' reign ultimately reshaped the monarchy, leading to the establishment of a constitutional monarchy and the solidification of parliamentary power. The Union of the Crowns. The Stuart dynasty began in 1603, with James VI of Scotland inheriting the English throne upon the death of Elizabeth I, who died without an heir. James VI became James I of England, uniting the crowns of England and Scotland under a single monarch. James's vision of unity. James sought to create a united kingdom encompassing England, Scotland, and Ireland, but his ambitions faced resistance. Political and cultural differences between England and Scotland, along with religious divisions, made unification difficult to achieve during his reign. Religious tensions. James I was a Protestant, but his relatively tolerant approach to Catholics and his belief in the divine right of kings alienated Puritans and other religious groups. The Gunpowder Plot of 1605, an attempt by Catholic conspirators led by Guy Fawkes to assassinate James and blow up Parliament, deepened anti-Catholic sentiment in England. Colonization and expansion. James's reign saw the establishment of the Jamestown colony in Virginia in 1607, marking the beginning of England's permanent presence in North America. Charles I and the road to civil war. James I was succeeded by his son Charles I in 1625. Charles's reign was defined by escalating tensions between the monarchy and parliament, as well as religious conflict. Belief in the divine right of kings. Like his father, Charles believed that monarchs were appointed by God and accountable only to him. This belief clashed with the growing power and assertiveness of Parliament. Conflict with Parliament. Charles frequently clashed with Parliament over issues of taxation and governance. In 1629, frustrated by parliamentary opposition, He dissolved Parliament and ruled without it for 11 years, a period known as the personal rule. To raise revenue without parliamentary approval, Charles imposed controversial taxes, such as ship money, which angered the nobility and commoners alike. Religious policies. Charles's efforts to impose Anglican worship practices on Scotland led to the Bishops' Wars, 1639 to 1640, which further strained his finances and forced him to recall Parliament. His marriage to a Catholic queen, Henrietta Maria of France, and his perceived favoritism toward Catholicism deepened distrust among his Protestant subjects. The Long Parliament, an outbreak of war. In 1640, Charles convened the Long Parliament, which sought to curb his authority. Key events, such as the Grand Remonstrance and the attempted arrest of 5 MPs in 1642, ignited a constitutional crisis. The conflict escalated into the English Civil War 1642 to 1651, pitting royalists, supporters of the king, against parliamentarians, supporters of parliamentary supremacy. The English Civil War. The English Civil War was a transformative period in British history, resulting in the temporary abolition of the monarchy and the establishment of a republic. Key battles and turning points. The war consisted of 3 phases, with major battles such as the Battle of Edgehill 1642, the Battle of Marston Moor 1644, and the Battle of Naseby 1645. The parliamentarians, led by Oliver Cromwell and his new model army, gained the upper hand due to their superior organization and discipline. Execution of Charles I. In 1649, after losing the war, Charles I was put on trial for treason by Parliament. He was convicted and executed, an unprecedented act that shocked Europe. The monarchy was abolished, and England was declared a republic, known as the Commonwealth. The Interregnum and Oliver Cromwell. The period between 1649 and 1660, known as the Interregnum, saw England experiment with republicanism under the leadership of Oliver Cromwell. The Commonwealth and Protectorate. Initially, England was governed as a republic under the Rump Parliament, but Cromwell eventually assumed control as Lord Protector in 1653. Cromwell's rule was marked by authoritarian governance and religious strictness, including the suppression of Catholicism in Ireland and military campaigns in Scotland. Social and cultural impact. The Puritan influence during Cromwell's rule led to the suppression of many cultural activities, including theater and traditional celebrations. Despite these restrictions, Cromwell's regime laid the groundwork for later debates about democracy and governance. Restoration of the monarchy. After Cromwell's death in 1658, the Republic faltered, and there was growing support for the return of the monarchy. In 1660, Charles I's son, Charles II, was invited to return to the throne, marking the beginning of the Restoration. The Restoration era. The reign of Charles II, 1660 to 1685, restored the monarchy, but under new constraints that reflected the lessons of the Civil War. A changing monarchy. Charles II ruled in cooperation with Parliament, avoiding the absolutism that had characterized his father's reign. His court became known for its decadence and tolerance, earning him the nickname the Merry Monarch. Religious tensions persist. Although Charles II maintained Protestantism as the official religion, his Catholic sympathies and the Declaration of Indulgence, 1672, caused friction with Parliament. The Test Act, 1673, was introduced to bar Catholics from holding public office. The Great Fire and Plague. Charles's reign saw 2 major disasters, the Great Plague of London, 1665, and the Great Fire of London, 1666, which reshaped the city's landscape. James II and the Glorious Revolution. Charles II's brother and successor, James II, 1685 to 1688, faced opposition for his overt Catholicism and attempts to centralize power. James's policies. James's efforts to promote Catholicism and bypass Parliament alienated many of his subjects, including Protestants and members of the nobility. The Glorious Revolution. In 1688, James was deposed in a bloodless coup known as the Glorious Revolution. His Protestant daughter Mary II and her husband William of Orange were invited to take the throne. This event established the principle of constitutional monarchy, with a monarchy's powers limited by the Bill of Rights, 1689. Legacy of the Stuart dynasty. The Stuart era was a time of upheaval and transformation for the British monarchy. Constitutional monarchy. The Stuart period saw the transition from absolute monarchy to a system where a monarch ruled in partnership with Parliament. Religious division. The dynasties reigned deep in religious divides, shaping the political and social landscape of Britain for generations. Colonial expansion. The Stuarts oversaw the growth of English colonies in North America and the Caribbean, laying the foundation for the British Empire. The Glorious Revolution of 1688 was a defining moment in British history that marked the transition from an absolute to a constitutional monarchy. It was the culmination of decades of tension between the monarchy and Parliament, driven by conflicts over religion, governance, and the balance of power. The revolution not only deposed a reigning monarch, but also established principles of governance that continue to define the British monarchy to this day. Background: James II and the Road to Revolution. The seeds of the Glorious Revolution were sown during the reign of James II, 1685 to 1688, whose overt Catholicism and autocratic policies alienated many of his Protestant subjects. James II's Catholic faith. James was the second son of Charles I and had converted to Catholicism as a young man. His Catholicism was tolerated during the reign of his Protestant brother, Charles II, but became a source of controversy when he ascended the throne. England had been officially Protestant since the reign of Elizabeth I, and anti-Catholic sentiment was widespread. Many feared that James would restore Catholicism as the dominant religion. Autocratic governance. James sought to centralize royal power and bypass Parliament. He suspended laws, appointed Catholics to key positions, and issued the Declaration of Indulgence, 1687, which granted religious freedom to Catholics and dissenters. These actions violated the Test Acts, which required public officials to swear allegiance to the Church of England, further straining his relationship with Parliament. The birth of a Catholic heir. In 1688, James's wife, Mary of Modena, gave birth to a son, James Francis Edward Stuart, who was baptized as a Catholic. This event alarmed Protestants, as it signaled the potential for a Catholic dynasty. Previously, the throne would have passed to James's Protestant daughter, Mary, who was married to William of Orange, a Dutch Protestant leader. The birth of a male heir displaced Mary in the line of succession and intensified opposition to James. The Glorious Revolution, a bloodless coup. The growing opposition to James II culminated in a political and military intervention orchestrated by Protestant nobles and William of Orange. The invitation to William. In 1688, a group of 7 Protestant nobles, later known as the Immortal Seven, secretly invited William of Orange to invade England and depose James II. William had a vested interest in this invitation, as it aligned with his goal of countering French Catholic influence in Europe. He also sought to secure the English throne for his wife Mary. William's invasion. William landed in England in November 1688 with a substantial army, but his invasion faced little resistance. Many of James's supporters, including key military officers, defected to William's side. James, facing overwhelming opposition and abandonment by his allies, fled to France in December 1688. His flight was interpreted as an abdication, allowing Parliament to declare the throne vacant. The Joint Monarchy. In February 1689, Parliament formally offered the crown to William and Mary as joint monarchs. They were crowned as William III and Mary II, marking the beginning of a constitutional monarchy. The arrangement established that the monarchy derived its legitimacy from Parliament rather than divine right, a fundamental shift in governance. The Bill of Rights, 1689. One of the most significant outcomes of the Glorious Revolution was the adoption of the Bill of Rights, 1689, a landmark document that limited royal power and established key principles of constitutional governance. Limits on royal authority. The Bill of Rights restricted the monarch's ability to suspend laws, levy taxes, or maintain a standing army without parliamentary consent. It also reaffirmed the need for regular sessions of Parliament, ensuring that the monarchy could not govern unilaterally. Protection of rights. The bill guaranteed certain rights to English citizens, including freedom of speech in Parliament, the right to petition the monarch, and protection from cruel and unusual punishment. Religious implications. The bill barred Catholics from ascending the throne and required that all future monarchs swear allegiance to the Protestant faith. This provision, while controversial, reflected the deep-seated anti-Catholic sentiment of the time and ensured the Protestant character of the monarchy. The Toleration Act, 1689. In addition to the Bill of Rights, the Toleration Act, 1689, was passed to address the issue of religious dissent. Religious freedom for nonconformists. The Toleration Act granted freedom of worship to Protestant dissenters, such as Baptists and Presbyterians, who had faced persecution under earlier monarchs. However, the act did not extend these freedoms to Catholics, atheists, or Jews, reflecting the continued dominance of the Church of England. Impact on religious unity. While the Toleration Act marked a step toward religious pluralism, it also reinforced the notion of a state religion, with the Church of England retaining its privileged status. The Jacobite rebellions. The deposed James II and his descendants, known as the Jacobites, continued to claim the English throne, leading to a series of uprisings over the next century. Support from France and Ireland. James II, living in exile in France, received support from Louis XIV and Irish Catholics, who sought to restore him to power. The Battle of the Boyne, 1690, in which William III defeated James's forces in Ireland, marked a decisive victory for the Protestant monarchy. Later, Jacobite rebellions. The Jacobite cause remained a threat during the reigns of subsequent monarchs, culminating in the 1745 uprising led by Bonnie Prince Charles Edward Stuart. The defeat at Culloden ended Jacobite hopes for restoration. The legacy of the Glorious Revolution. The Glorious Revolution had far-reaching consequences for the British monarchy and governance. Establishment of constitutional monarchy. The revolution established the principle that the monarchy must govern in partnership with Parliament, paving the way for the modern British political system. It also set a precedent for the peaceful transfer of power, emphasizing the importance of parliamentary sovereignty. Religious settlement. By ensuring a Protestant monarchy, the Glorious Revolution reinforced the religious identity of England and shaped its role in European geopolitics. Inspiration for future revolutions. The principles enshrined in the Bill of Rights influenced the development of constitutional governance in other countries, including the United States and France. Conclusion, a turning point in British history. The Glorious Revolution was a transformative event that redefined the British monarchy and its relationship with the people. By replacing an absolute monarch with a constitutional framework, it laid the foundations for a system of governance that balanced royal authority with parliamentary power. The legacy of this revolution endures as a cornerstone of British democracy and a model for constitutional government worldwide. The Hanoverian era, which began in 1714 and lasted until 1901, marked a significant transition in the role of the British monarchy. The arrival of the House of Hanover on the English throne solidified the constitutional monarchy established during the Glorious Revolution and ushered in a period where Parliament became the dominant governing body. The early Hanoverian kings, particularly George I and George II, faced challenges integrating into British society, but their reigns were pivotal in shaping the monarchy's role as a ceremonial institution while political power shifted toward Parliament. This era also saw major events like the Industrial Revolution, the rise of the British Empire, and internal political changes that laid the groundwork for modern democracy. The succession of George I. The Hanoverian dynasty began with the accession of George I in 1714. George, a German prince, became King of Great Britain and Ireland due to the provisions of the Act of Settlement, 1701, which ensured that only Protestants could inherit the throne. Why George I was chosen? The Act of Settlement bypassed dozens of closer Catholic claimants, including the exiled James Francis Edward Stuart, son of James II, in favor of George, the Protestant elector of Hanover and great-grandson of James I. This decision reflected the continued fear of Catholic influence and a commitment to maintaining a Protestant monarchy. Cultural and political challenges. George I spoke little English and spent much of his time in Hanover, relying heavily on his ministers to govern. This detachment from daily politics helped Parliament solidify its authority. His foreign origins and perceived disinterest in British affairs made him unpopular with segments of the population, but his reign stabilized the succession and prevented the return of the Jacobites. The role of the Jacobite threat. The early Hanoverian period was marked by repeated attempts by the Jacobites, supporters of the exiled Stuarts, to reclaim the throne. The Jacobite Rebellion of 1715. Shortly after George I's accession, the Jacobites launched an uprising to restore James Francis Edward Stuart, known as the Old Pretender, to the throne. The rebellion, centered in Scotland, was poorly coordinated and ultimately crushed, reinforcing Hanoverian control. The Jacobite Rebellion of 1745. A more serious challenge came during the reign of George II, when Charles Edward Stuart, known as Bonnie Prince Charlie, led the 45 Rising. After initial successes, the Jacobite forces were decisively defeated at the Battle of Culloden in 1746, marking the end of the Jacobite threat and cementing Hanoverian rule. The rise of parliamentary power. During the Hanoverian era, the British monarchy transitioned from an active governing institution to a ceremonial role as Parliament became the center of political power. The role of prime ministers. The Hanoverian kings relied increasingly on ministers to manage government affairs. Robert Walpole, who served as First Lord of the Treasury from 1721 to 1742, is often considered the first prime minister of Great Britain. Walpole's long tenure established the precedent for a chief minister who worked closely with Parliament, reducing the monarch's direct involvement in governance. Parliamentary sovereignty. The shift toward parliamentary sovereignty was driven by a growing electorate and the need for stable governance. By the time of George II, the monarchy had become largely symbolic, with major political decisions made by Parliament and the cabinet. Party politics. The Hanoverian period saw the development of political parties, particularly the Whigs and Tories, who vied for influence in Parliament. The Whigs, who generally supported the Hanoverian monarchy, dominated politics during the early 18th century, while the Tories often sympathized with the Jacobites. George III and the loss of the American colonies. The reign of George III, 1760 to 1820, marked a turning point in the Hanoverian era, with significant events such as the American Revolution and the Napoleonic Wars reshaping Britain's global role. The American Revolution. George III faced widespread criticism for his handling of the American colonies, which declared independence in 1776, after years of tension over taxation and representation. The loss of the American colonies in 1783 was a blow to British prestige but also spurred greater attention to other parts of the empire, such as India and the Caribbean. The king's mental health. George III suffered from periods of mental illness, which led to the establishment of the Regency Act 1811, allowing his son, the future George IV, to govern as Prince Regent. Despite these challenges, George III was popular for his personal piety and dedication to the nation, earning the nickname Farmer George for his interest in agriculture. The Industrial Revolution and economic growth. The Hanoverian era coincided with the Industrial Revolution, which transformed Britain into the world's leading industrial and economic power. Technological advancements. Innovations such as the steam engine, mechanized textile production, and improved iron manufacturing revolutionized industry. Urbanization accelerated as people moved to cities like Manchester and Birmingham to work in factories. The rise of the British Empire. Economic growth fueled Britain's expansion overseas, particularly in India, where the East India Company played a central role in establishing British dominance. The Hanoverians presided over the early stages of what would become the largest empire in history. The role of culture and enlightenment. The Hanoverian period was a time of cultural flourishing and intellectual advancement, influenced by the Enlightenment. Scientific and philosophical progress. Figures like Isaac Newton and Adam Smith advanced scientific and economic thought, while Enlightenment ideals emphasized reason, liberty, and progress. Art and architecture. The Georgian era saw the rise of neoclassical architecture, with iconic structures like the Royal Crescent in Bath and the rebuilding of St. Paul's Cathedral by Sir Christopher Wren. Literary achievements. Writers such as Jane Austen, Jonathan Swift, and Samuel Johnson made significant contributions to English literature during this period. The Hanoverian legacy. The Hanoverian era left an indelible mark on British history, particularly in terms of governance and empire. Parliamentary democracy. By the end of the Hanoverian period, the monarchy's role had become largely ceremonial, with real power residing in Parliament and the Prime Minister. Economic and imperial dominance. Britain emerged as a global superpower, leading the world in industrial production and territorial expansion. Cultural identity. The Georgian period defined much of Britain's cultural and architectural heritage, which remains a source of national pride. The Victorian era, 1837 to 1901, under the reign of Queen Victoria, marked a period of immense change, progress, and expansion for Britain. This era coincided with the Industrial Revolution, which transformed the economy, society, and culture of the nation. It was also an age of empire building, social reform, and scientific discovery. Queen Victoria became a symbol of stability and continuity during a time of rapid transformation, earning the title Grandmother of Europe due to her extensive family ties to European royalty. The Victorian era is remembered as a time of extraordinary achievements, but it was also an era of profound challenges, including the struggles of the working class, inequality, and the complexities of governing a vast empire. Queen Victoria's early reign. Victoria ascended to the throne in 1837 at the age of 18, following the death of her uncle, King William IV. Her reign lasted 63 years and 7 months, making her the longest reigning monarch in British history until she was surpassed by Queen Elizabeth II in 2015. Personal characteristics. Victoria was known for her strong will, dedication, and sense of duty. Her personal journals reveal her deep engagement with state affairs, despite the limitations of constitutional monarchy. Her marriage to Prince Albert of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha in 1840 was one of the defining relationships of her life. Albert became her closest advisor and played a significant role in shaping the cultural and political tone of her reign. The constitutional role of the monarchy. By the Victorian era, the British monarchy's role was largely ceremonial, with real political power residing in Parliament and the Prime Minister. Victoria worked closely with a series of prime ministers, including Lord Melbourne, Benjamin Disraeli, and William Gladstone, though her relationships with them varied. Disraeli, in particular, had a warm rapport with the Queen and famously referred to her as Empress. The Victorian Court. The court of Queen Victoria was known for its emphasis on morality, propriety, and family values. This contrasted with the more decadent courts of her predecessors, setting a tone for the era's cultural values. The Industrial Revolution, transforming Britain. The Victorian era was defined by the Industrial Revolution, a period of rapid technological advancement and economic growth that reshaped every aspect of British life. Technological innovations. Major inventions during this period included the steam engine, the railway system, and advances in textile manufacturing. The introduction of machinery and factories revolutionized production, increasing efficiency but also displacing traditional craftsmen. Urbanization and social change. The rise of industry led to massive urbanization, with cities like Manchester, Birmingham, and London becoming centers of commerce and innovation. While industrialization created unprecedented wealth, it also led to poor working conditions, overcrowded housing, and public health crises in urban areas. The railways. The expansion of the railway network connected towns and cities across Britain, facilitating trade, communication, and travel. Railways became a symbol of progress and played a key role in the growth of the British economy. Global trade. Britain became the workshop of the world, exporting manufactured goods across its growing empire. The Industrial Revolution solidified Britain's position as a global economic power. The British Empire. The sun never sets. The Victorian era marked the height of the British Empire, which expanded to encompass territories on every inhabited continent. By the end of Victoria's reign, the empire covered nearly a quarter of the world's landmass. Imperial expansion. Major territories acquired during Victoria's reign included India, large parts of Africa, and regions in Southeast Asia. The empire became central to Britain's economy, providing raw materials for its industries and serving as markets for its goods. The role of India. India, often referred to as the jewel in the crown, was the most important colony in the empire. Following the Indian Rebellion of 1857, the British government assumed direct control of India, ending the rule of the East India Company. In 1876, Victoria was declared Empress of India, symbolizing the importance of the colony to the empire. Colonial challenges. While the empire brought wealth and influence, it also faced resistance from colonized peoples. Revolts, uprisings, and independence movements were recurring challenges during the Victorian era. Social reform and inequality. The Victorian era was characterized by stark contrast between wealth and poverty. While industrialization created unprecedented economic growth, it also led to widespread inequality and social unrest. The working class. Factory workers, miners, and laborers faced long hours, low wages, and dangerous conditions. Child labor was widespread, with children working in mines, factories, and as chimney sweeps. Efforts to improve conditions included the passage of laws such as the Factory Acts, which regulated working hours and banned child labor under certain ages. Public health and housing. Rapid urbanization led to overcrowded slums, where disease and poor sanitation were rampant. Epidemics of cholera, typhoid, and tuberculosis were common. Reformers like Edwin Chadwick advocated for public health measures, leading to the construction of modern sewage systems and cleaner urban environments. Education and literacy. The Education Act of 1870 made elementary education available to all children, laying the foundation for universal literacy. Literacy rates improved dramatically during Victoria's reign, contributing to the growth of newspapers, books, and popular literature. Cultural and scientific advancements. The Victorian era was a time of remarkable cultural and scientific progress, shaping the modern world in profound ways. Literature and the arts. Victorian literature produced some of the most enduring works in the English language, with authors like Charles Dickens, Charlotte Bronte, George Eliot, and Thomas Hardy addressing themes of industrialization, morality, and social justice. The Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood and other artistic movements flourished, challenging traditional approaches to art and design. Scientific discoveries. The Victorian period saw groundbreaking scientific advancements, including Charles Darwin's theory of evolution, published in On the Origin of Species, 1859. Innovations in medicine, such as the development of anesthesia and antiseptic techniques, revolutionized healthcare. The Great Exhibition, 1851. Organized by Prince Albert, the Great Exhibition showcased Britain's industrial and cultural achievements. Held in London's Crystal Palace, it was a celebration of progress and a symbol of Britain's global influence. The decline of Victoria and her legacy. Victoria's later years were marked by personal grief, particularly after the death of Prince Albert in 1861. She withdrew from public life for several years, earning criticism for her perceived neglect of her royal duties. The House of Windsor, which formally came into existence in 1917, has presided over some of the most tumultuous and transformative periods in British history. From the global conflicts of the First World War and Second World War to the societal changes that followed, the Windsors have adapted to the challenges of modernity while maintaining the monarchy's symbolic role as a unifying institution. During this period, the British monarchy evolved in response to shifting public expectations, the decline of the British Empire, and the pressures of modern governance and media scrutiny. The formation of the House of Windsor. The House of Windsor was originally known as the House of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha, a German royal house established when Queen Victoria's son, Edward VII, inherited the throne in 1901. However, the outbreak of World War I in 1914 brought intense anti-German sentiment to Britain. Changing the name. In 1917, King George V, recognizing the need to distance the monarchy from its German roots, officially renamed the royal house to Windsor after Windsor Castle, a symbol of English heritage and tradition. This act was part of a broader effort to align the monarchy with British identity during a time of war. Adapting to modern times. George V's decision to renounce the German titles held by members of the royal family and adopt British surnames reflected a shift toward a more nationalistic and accessible image for the monarchy. These changes helped solidify the monarchy's position during a period of political and social upheaval. World War I and the role of George V. During the First World War, 1914 to 1918, George V played a crucial role in maintaining the monarchy's relevance and supporting the nation during a time of unprecedented conflict. Support for the troops. George V and Queen Mary regularly visited soldiers in hospitals, munitions factories, and war zones, boosting morale and reinforcing the monarchy's connection to the people. The king's personal sacrifices, including rationing at Buckingham Palace, mirrored the hardships faced by ordinary citizens. The fall of European monarchies. The war led to the collapse of several European monarchies, including the Russian, German, and Austro-Hungarian empires. George V's controversial decision not to offer asylum to his cousin, Tsar Nicholas II, who was later executed by the Bolsheviks, highlighted the monarchy's cautious approach to political involvement. Post-war challenges. The end of the war brought economic hardship, social unrest, and demands for political reform. George V's ability to navigate these challenges helped preserve the monarchy during a period of widespread discontent. The abdication crisis, Edward VIII and George VI. One of the most dramatic moments in Windsor history occurred in 1936, when Edward VIII abdicated the throne to Mary Wallis Simpson, an American divorcee. His decision to prioritize personal desires over royal duty created a constitutional crisis. Edward VIII's reign. Edward's short reign, January-December 1936, was marked by controversy, as his relationship with Wallis Simpson was deemed incompatible with his role as head of the Church of England, which opposed remarriage after divorce. His lack of commitment to royal responsibilities and rumored sympathies toward Nazi Germany further alienated political and public figures. Abdication and succession. Edward's abdication paved the way for his younger brother, George VI, to ascend the throne. George, a shy and reserved man with a speech impediment, reluctantly took on the role, but earned widespread respect for his dedication and humility. The role of duty. The abdication crisis reinforced the importance of duty and sacrifice within the royal family, values that would define George VI's reign and influence his daughter, Queen Elizabeth II. World War II, the monarchy during a time of crisis. The Second World War, 1939 to 1945, was a defining moment for the British monarchy, as George VI and his family became symbols of resilience and unity. Staying in London. Despite the bombing of Buckingham Palace during the Blitz, George VI and Queen Elizabeth, later the Queen Mother, refused to leave London, famously declaring, "The children won't go without me. I won't leave the king, and the king will never leave." Their decision to remain in the capital, sharing in the dangers faced by ordinary citizens, strengthened public support for the monarchy. Princess Elizabeth's contribution. During the war, the future Queen Elizabeth II joined the Auxiliary Territorial Service (ATS), where she trained as a mechanic and driver. Her service underscored the royal family's commitment to the war effort. Broadcasts and public morale. George VI's wartime radio broadcasts, including his Christmas messages, became a source of comfort and inspiration for the nation. His speeches, despite his stammer, reflected courage and solidarity. Victory and rebuilding. The monarchy played a central role in post-war celebrations, including V-Day Victory in Europe Day, when the royal family appeared in the balcony of Buckingham Palace alongside Winston Churchill to celebrate the end of the war. Post-war Britain and the decline of empire. The aftermath of World War II brought significant changes to Britain, including the decline of the British Empire and the emergence of the Commonwealth of Nations. Decolonization. Under George VI's reign, many former colonies, including India, Pakistan, and Ceylon, Sri Lanka, gained independence. This marked the beginning of the transition from empire to commonwealth. The monarchy adapted to its new role, emphasizing unity and shared values within the Commonwealth rather than direct political control. Economic challenges. Post-war austerity and rebuilding efforts placed significant strain on the British economy. The monarchy, while maintaining its ceremonial role, worked to remain relevant in a rapidly changing society. Legacy of George VI and the transition to Elizabeth II. George VI's death in 1952 marked the end of a reign defined by duty, humility, and service. His legacy as a steadfast leader during a time of crisis set the stage for the long and transformative reign of his daughter, Queen Elizabeth II. A symbol of stability. George VI's leadership during World War II solidified the monarchy's role as a unifying force in British society. His example of selfless service became a model for future monarchs. The rise of a new era. With Elizabeth II's succession, the Windsors entered a new phase of modernity, navigating the challenges of the post-war world, media scrutiny, and changing public attitudes toward the monarchy. Conclusion: the Windsors in the 20th century. The House of Windsor's role during the World Wars and their aftermath showcased the monarchy's ability to adapt and endure during periods of immense change. Through their actions, the Windsors reinforced the monarchy's relevance as a symbol of unity, resilience, and continuity. The challenges and triumphs of this period laid the foundation for the monarchy's continued presence in the modern world, as it transitioned from an imperial institution to one focused on service, tradition, and national identity. The modern era has been a period of transformation, adaptation, and survival for the British monarchy. From the reign of Queen Elizabeth II to the present day, the monarchy has faced significant challenges, including public scrutiny, changing societal values, and the decline of deference to traditional institutions. Yet, the monarchy has also shown resilience and the ability to evolve, maintaining its relevance in a rapidly changing world. This period has been characterized by a delicate balance between upholding tradition and embracing modernity, ensuring the monarchy remains a unifying symbol for the United Kingdom and the Commonwealth. The reign of Queen Elizabeth II, a legacy of continuity and service. The reign of Queen Elizabeth II, 1952 to 2022, was the longest in British history, spanning 7 decades. Her tenure defined the modern monarchy and saw Britain transition through profound social, cultural, and political changes. The early years. Elizabeth became queen at the age of 25 following the death of her father, George VI, in 1952. Her coronation in 1953, the first to be televised globally, marked the monarchy's embrace of modern technology and its desire to connect with the public. The young queen's commitment to duty and service was evident from the beginning. She declared during a broadcast on her 21st birthday, "I declare before you all that my whole life, whether it be long or short, shall be devoted to your service." The Commonwealth. Under Elizabeth's leadership, the monarchy placed a greater emphasis on the Commonwealth of Nations, a voluntary association of former British colonies and territories. Elizabeth visited nearly every Commonwealth country during her reign, fostering relationships and promoting unity. The Commonwealth became a cornerstone of her legacy, representing a shift from empire to partnership. Challenges and triumphs. The Queen faced significant challenges, including the Suez Crisis, 1956, the decolonization of Africa and the Caribbean, and economic difficulties in Britain during the 1970s and 1980s. Despite these challenges, her steadfastness and impartiality reinforced the monarchy's role as a symbol of stability during times of upheaval. Modernization of the monarchy. One of the defining features of the modern monarchy has been its ability to adapt to changing times while preserving its traditions. Engaging with the public. Elizabeth II embraced public engagement, introducing practices such as royal walkabouts, where she greeted ordinary citizens during public events. The monarchy increasingly used modern media to connect with people, from the televising of major events to the use of social media in recent years. Royal finances and transparency. In the late 20th century, questions about royal spending and the cost of maintaining the monarchy led to greater transparency. The Queen agreed to pay income tax on her private income in 1992, a significant step toward addressing public concerns about the royal family's finances. Changing roles. The role of the monarchy became more focused on ceremonial duties and charitable work. The royal family championed numerous causes, from conservation to mental health awareness. The Windsor family in the spotlight. The modern Windsor family has often been at the center of public and media attention, reflecting both the monarchy's enduring relevance and its vulnerability in the face of scandal. Marital struggles and scandals. The 1990s were a particularly turbulent decade for the royal family. The divorces of Prince Charles and Diana, Prince Andrew and Sarah Ferguson, and Princess Anne and Mark Phillips dominated headlines. The death of Diana, Princess of Wales, in 1997 was a watershed moment for the monarchy. Public grief and criticism of the royal family's initial response highlighted the need for greater emotional connection with the public. Prince Charles and Camilla. The relationship between Charles and Camilla Parker Bowles, long seen as controversial, gradually gained public acceptance. Their marriage in 2005 reflected the monarchy's adaptation to modern views on love and relationships. Younger generations. The marriages of Prince William to Catherine Middleton in 2011 and Prince Harry to Meghan Markle in 2018 brought fresh attention to the royal family. These events symbolized a more inclusive and relatable monarchy. Crisis and controversy. Despite its ability to adapt, the modern monarchy has faced significant challenges and controversies. Prince Andrew's scandal. Allegations against Prince Andrew related to his association with Jeffrey Epstein and accusations of sexual misconduct severely damaged his public reputation. Andrew's withdrawal from royal duties in 2019 marked a rare instance of a senior royal stepping back due to controversy. Harry and Meghan's departure. In 2020, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle announced their decision to step back from royal duties and relocate to the United States. Their subsequent interviews, including accusations of racism and neglect within the royal family, sparked global debate about the monarchy's relevance and inclusivity. Public criticism and Republican sentiment. In recent years, the monarchy has faced growing criticism, particularly from younger generations, about its cost, relevance, and historical associations with colonialism. Republican sentiment, though still a minority view, has gained traction in some parts of the UK and the Commonwealth. The passing of Queen Elizabeth II and the reign of Charles III. The death of Queen Elizabeth II in September 2022 marked the end of an era and the beginning of a new chapter for the British monarchy. National mourning and global tributes. Elizabeth's passing was met with an outpouring of grief and tributes from around the world, reflecting her status as a global figure and symbol of continuity. Her state funeral was one of the largest gatherings of world leaders in history, highlighting her immense influence. The challenges facing Charles III. King Charles III, who ascended the throne at the age of 73, inherited a monarchy navigating complex challenges, including public skepticism, generational divides, and the evolving role of the monarchy. Charles's focus on environmental issues, sustainable development, and modernization reflects his long-standing interests and commitment to addressing contemporary issues. The future of the Commonwealth. As head of the Commonwealth, Charles faces the challenge of maintaining unity among member states, some of which have signaled intentions to become republics. The monarchy's ability to remain relevant in a post-colonial world will be a key test of its adaptability. The modern role of the monarchy. In the 21st century, the British monarchy serves as a ceremonial and symbolic institution, representing continuity, tradition, and national identity.